Hey, Quinn, you know you have a schedule to keep, right? I swear, this is not going to become a literature channel. I mean, not that that would be bad, I just don't read consistently enough. I mean, shit, I got bored halfway through Children of Dune and I'm somehow getting through Stephen King's It. I love It so far, probably about as much as I love the first film of the recent second attempt at adaptation. And after watching both the 1990 TV movie, a series which broke Tim Curry's back with how much he had to carry the thing, and fond memories of at least the 2017 It, I was thinking about how exactly one would go about adapting something claimed unfilmable. There's a lot that goes into whether or not an adaptation even gets made, let alone if the adaptation is any good. But what makes a book unfit for adapting into a movie? Successful adaptations like Watchmen and The Lord of the Rings live right up against adaptations that fail, like most of the DC Universe animated adaptations and The Hobbit. To figure out what exactly went wrong with the adaptation of The Hobbit when The Lord of the Rings is probably one of the greatest trilogies of all time, is subject of that 3-part Lindsay Ellis series that everyone should watch, but put simply, what broke The Hobbit was an attempt to turn a shorter kids' book into another Lord of the Rings. But with It, I think there's something else going on. Part of what cripples the 1990 TV adaptation is that it's television, and they don't have the biggest budget to spend on a lot of complicated special effects to do all the monsters justice. As a movie like Mad Max Fury Road shows us, well-done practical effects are incredible, but they are also expensive. 2017 gets around this problem by going out of its way to make the story into a big-budget horror movie, and turning it into the highest-grossing R-rated movie of all time. I think that's what makes a good adaptation in the first place, simply trying to take the source material and make a good movie out of it. Something like the Harry Potter series movies vary wildly in quality because the books vary wildly in quality. Goblet of Fire, for instance, stands alone as a pretty good modern fantasy adventure movie, even if the last 20 minutes or so don't hold up at all. I think that's where It Chapter 2 from 2019 fails, because it seems concerned with making a good adaptation of It versus making a good ending. Stephen King couldn't figure out how to end It either, but that doesn't mean the right way to go about making an ending was to make a giant CGI clown that almost looks like it's from a spoof movie. I mean, seriously, if this thing showed up in Scream or one of the Scary Movie films, we'd all think it was some massive stroke of genius and a way to collectively punch up at Stephen King himself. Really, the way to do It as a full 2-film adaptation was to not get bogged down in the timeline jumping aspects of the story, and to really set about making a film that's a true sequel to the original. Do Pennywise again, but make him more savage and brutal to match the more adult nature of the characters. Give him a chance to really be genuinely creepy and play off the character's fears from now, as opposed to just being a clown again. Beverly and Tom is a perfect example. Her biggest flaw after the time skip is that she married a man who was basically her father. Pennywise should play off of that. Fuck what the book does in that case. I mean, rewrite it. Especially in the case of It, people who are gonna see the second one are going to be either fans of the 2017 movie, and maybe not explicitly Stephen King fans. I think throwing out dumb things that books do for the sake of time or make the narrative tighter is totally the way to go. As a fan of Matt Colville, I recognize the need for the Tom Bombadil and the Old Forest section of Fellowship of the Ring, but it was 100% the right call to surgically remove that entire section from the movies, as jumping right in with Strider at the Prancing Pony is a lot tighter and makes the movie, that's already way too fucking long, from running even longer. Ditto with the scouring of the Shire from Return of the King. Going back to It, I think also one of the things that makes the 2017 movies watchable is splitting the timeline down the middle. One of the worst parts of the TV movie is that it keeps jumping back and forth. The kids section is still the most interesting part, and instead of getting 100% of one good movie, you get 75% of a good 90s movie mixed in with a bad 90s drama. So It was able to focus on making one excellent movie that's watchable and dramatic and awesome, and one movie that I'm probably being a little too mean to here, despite the fact that it's a retread. It's a good enough retread, the cast is pretty excellent, Bringing back a topic from last time, the David Lynch Dune adaptation seemed like it was trying to turn Dune into a normal science fiction movie, which Dune really isn't at its core. Most of the time, David Lynch's Dune is concerned with making a movie that valorizes his main character than with Herbert's main purpose in writing Dune and Messiah, but y'all just watched a video of me talking about Dune, so go watch that if you're interested. Someone doing an adaptation of a work with differing politics from the original was explored again with the adaptation of Robert Heinlein's novel Starship Troopers into one of the best action movies ever made. Don't at me about I know what I said. Starship Troopers is a movie with a profoundly anti-war message that is hell-bent on making itself look almost exactly like a propaganda movie from the culture it depicts that would make about itself. The actual novel Starship Troopers is very pro-war and makes Rico's time in the mobile infantry seem like he was going off to kill a bug, and in doing so actually saves humanity. But when you get down to it, the movie has so many messages that are explicitly anti-war that it fails on any level to maintain consistent messaging with the original. To me, that's a point in its favor. Taking Heinlein's fascism and turning it into anti-war science fiction movies is absolutely the right call when adapting Starship Troopers. All the movies I'm glossing over here most likely deserve videos of their own. Suffice it to say that making a good adaptation is quite a lot like making a good movie. You really just need a good screenplay to get going. What made a movie like Avatar: The Last Airbender into a steaming, deep-fried pile of afterbirth was that a bad script, bad special effects, a poor grasp on what made the source material great, the fact that it compressed the entire show into one movie. I mean, the list goes on. Something like Avatar is a lot about the world the characters inhabit, and some of the best episodes of Avatar are filler episodes like The Beach, Tales of Ba Sing Se, Zuko Alone, Bitter Work. And with all that, you end up with a TV show that has one filler episode across 3 seasons and 61 episodes. It's the Great Divide, in case anyone's wondering. And then there's historical adaptations. Something like Spike Lee's Black Klansman adds in an overarching plot with a story that didn't really have one to begin with. Ron Stallworth's memoir is a great and fairly quick read, which is nice, but it doesn't exactly have the 3-act structure of a Hollywood movie. Spike Lee adds one in while still keeping the message and spirit of the memoir while holding everything together with a slightly fictionalized and dramatized story. So I guess what I'm saying here is that there's no way to do an adaptation properly. There's adaptations that are great because they adapt their source material literally. There's adaptations that suck because they hold too close to the source material. There's adaptations that change a lot around and totally shake the story up and make an excellent movie. There's adaptations that make terrible movies by making too many changes. One constant I can see is that there's a lot of adaptations of longer works of fiction that are too afraid to cut things out or split the story up. Imagine trying to do It as one movie, or The Stand, or even Dune. There are even adaptations that probably spend a bit too long for the source material they're adapting. And yeah, that show's ending was exactly like it was in the books, and I gotta say, I almost would have rathered never reading book 13. I mean, at the end of the day, there is no rule for adaptations, except don't adapt video games unless you hire The Rock.